What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I'm BobbyFi. I'm here with my man, Eric Haber. We're going to be doing a Draftkings lineup build. We're going to talk a little FanDuel also. We're going to be continuing doing these videos for you guys. We've got nothing but positive feedback. Make sure to give us the little thumbs up, like on YouTube. That means a lot to us. Anyway, we're going to keep these going because we've had some pretty good success with helping with some plays. We've got some other things wrong, but I really like this slate. I think Sheets likes this slate, and I think we're ready to get into it. Eric, how you doing today, my man?
Let's do it. And last night was, like you said, we had some great things going. And, when you play GPPs, unfortunately, you need to get everything right. So sometimes you just don't get everything right. But, that's why you keep plugging away.
It's always nice. Even if I only play like one lineup or whatever, I always like lineups, nights where I don't lose on any lineup. So that was a nice night.
That's
for me.
True. That's true.
All right, well, we'll move on today. We've got some really, I love this slate, and there's a lot of ways to go. So we're going to name a lot of good plays, but we will prioritize. And I'll give you at the end, I'm going to give you a rundown of where I have the players at ownership-wise. As of right now, it is 12:45 p.m. on the East Coast, 9:45 a.m. my time. But we've got a good idea for this slate, and we'll probably hear about news, but this should still give you a really good core to build with, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite games.
Well, let me just give you my quick overview of the slate before we get into it. Is the one thing I noticed, we talked about this before, is unlike a lot of slates, at least as there is now, there's no huge ownership issue. In other words, based on ownership projections as I see them, as I'm looking at now, you got a few guys at about 25, project about 25%, and a few guys between 15 and 20, but you don't have, at least for now, there's some big, huge guy that you have to worry about fading or not fading. It looks like, and again, things change, that it could be a slate where you could play your plays and not worry that much about ownership. The other things that I noticed was, number one is there are going to be, we can talk about this when we get to it, some of the really well projected spend ups are actually do carry some blowout risk. So we definitely have to talk about that and how to attack that. And the other thing I noticed before, it could show up later, is I don't see too much cheap value right away. Stuff could come up. The only value we really see right now is kind of in the mid-range. And when you have these kind of decent spend-ups, it provides kind of some interesting decisions of what you want to do.
Well, I would love it if nothing changed, because I love some of the lowish mid-tier value to take shots on. But I also I know for a fact that we're going to hear about something and there will be a chalk value guy. And that's fine, because you can still build your cores around these expensive guys. Even if somebody else comes out as extreme value and the ownership goes somewhere, it's still going to be spread out away from a few spots no matter what tonight. So really love those kind of slates. Let's get into the first game.
Let's go. So, just since you brought it up, right? So San Antonio against Washington, highest total on the slate. And again, you got to be very careful not to double count, to make sure that you don't say, okay, guys project well, and also it's a really big total and a close, because that's already factored into your projections or the projections. With that said, you're coming right out of the gate at 7 o'clock Eastern with a 238 total and a close spread. You'd expect to see a lot of guys from this game kind of pop in projections, but whether DK did a really, really good job pricing or whether it's just kind of one of those weird matchups, nobody pops that well. In other words, there are some good plays, like from Washington, Bradley Beal looks pretty good, but even the guys you'd expect to project pretty well as a value, like even Isaiah Thomas doesn't look that great, Thomas Bryant doesn't look that great, and these guys that we've taken shots on, like Rui Hachimura and guys like that, don't look that great. And on the San Antonio side, though, the guys you usually find, your DeMar DeRozans and LaMarcus Aldridge or whatever, they're priced up pretty decently. But since you brought up mid-range value, and this guy's probably going to be popular, but I'll just come right out of the gate as the best guy for me from a value projected out of this game is going to be DeJounte Murray at 5,200. Again, it's kind of an upside play in that the projections that I'm looking at are based on a 25-minute projection. And yeah, Popovich has been pretty stingy with his minutes with Murray, but you can only think that there's upside from that. And if you get a game like this where no one's playing defense, okay, except for DeJounte Murray, because he always plays defense, he can get some steals. And when he gets steals and when he's playing good defense, Pop loves that. So I think that DeJounte Murray, even though he's probably going to be somewhat owned, since we are looking for value and 5,200 might be the type of mid-range value you're looking for, to me, this is by far the best play from this game for me.
He's definitely stands out. It's his type of a game. I think that it's a really, really good spot for him. I think that it's not that I worry about the minutes. I worry about if the value doesn't open up, how high owned he's going to be versus where he should be. Because to be honest, like that 17 fantasy point game is going to happen, a good percentage of the time here. And if he gets to be high owned on this big of a slate, I think I'm going to jump off. There's also other guys I like in that price range in some different games, even though we don't say there's not extreme value.
Well, we'll get to those, and then you know what? When we get to them, if we like them better, we'll just kick them out.
I think that you treat everybody else in this game other than there's a couple guys who I'm going to have as solo plays because I think that my strategy against Washington, against Minnesota. There's certain teams that I like to at least get double the field on guys. And
Okay.
San Antonio, and this definitely qualifies. The thing that's great is I don't need to spend that much on them to get over the field. I don't mind playing like Patty Mills on FanDuel at 36. I don't even think at this moment that he's that bad a play on DraftKings. I think that all the guards, down a man without White are gonna get boosts. So I have everybody at least in about 10% of my lineups, but I'm gonna have them mostly correlated with stacks in this game. I'm only gonna probably play Bradley Beal in stacks with maybe one or two exceptions because there's other players I really like at a similar price range, like I said. And if I'm going to bet on it, I may as well run it back with someone from San Antonio, assuming the game stays close, which I think it's likely to. But it could even stay close and still let you down with some of these other games. So I'm actually less on this as an overall game. I do think that if I have to rank my Spurs players, I'm just going to take a look at my ownerships right now. Let's see. We've got for the Spurs, I've got DeJounte Murray about 20%, roughly with where we probably project him to be with the field at this moment.
Pretty much.
With DeMar DeRozan, I want to be 15% or so on him. I know they raised the price and he looks ridiculous in the way he's been. This matchup is just so like he could score 40 real life points in this game, and I just want to be ahead of the field against teams like Washington because I'm not gonna change my brand now, especially when some of these guys do have upside. And the Spurs, by the way, are playing they're probably the third worst defensive team in the NBA at the moment, which I don't know how is possible, but it's absolutely true. Bryn Forbes, I want 10% of him because in this game without White, I could see him playing like 35 minutes in a certain scenario. All of these guys. So that's why I'm giving a boost to everybody. And I'll even throw in Trey Lyles into a lineup or two. I just think that for the most part on this kind of a slate, I don't love it as much as you'd think I would. And I know I named some guys, but most of those are going to be tried to be correlated with the guys I like on the other side, which would be number 1, Hachimura, number 2, Bryant, followed by Beal. And then Isaiah Thomas and Bertans' revenge, I guess. I don't mind taking a shot there. I just don't think it's necessary on this giant slate, but I do think Bertans could get 30 here plenty of the time. And I also think, I think the one guy I really am going to prioritize in other lineups is Rui Hachimura. I just think that he's a 30-plus fantasy point machine, in my opinion, as a player. Now, I know the numbers won't tell you the same thing. In all the close games that he's played in this year, I think he's put up 30 in all but one, which was the last one. This is a good matchup on top of it. He's 4,800, and there is upside on that 38. We just haven't necessarily seen his ceiling yet. But the Spurs are not going to just let Bradley Beal take over, even though they're bad defensively, which makes me think that Hachimura has even better chance, sort of like what we do with the Belichick playing a secondary receiver instead of the guy who they're going to try and stop. I just think that's an interesting way of looking at this game. I know we spent some time on it, but I thought just to give an overall, you can completely stack this game and go with it. But for the most part, other than a few exceptions, I don't really want a lot of one-offs. Although, like I said, I want some exposure, but I want it to mostly be in at least mini stacks in this game.
It's funny. One day when I become as good as you are, or half as good as you are, I'll be able to replace my opinion on the way games are going to go with the projections. Because I'm just still such a numbers guy that if somebody deviates from the projections, I'm going to need a real good reason to go. So when I see guys like Rui Hachimura, who I sometimes play, when I look at it, he projects so low. I guess that's what makes guys low owned. That everybody's looking at the same things that I look at. You know what I mean? So I think that's why you find low owned combinations sometimes that other people won't get it, because sometimes you say, you know what, even though NBA projections are pretty good, I have a little feel for the game flow that maybe some people don't have. So I think that's really interesting.
And yeah, he missed me a free throw earlier this year that cost me a fortune. That was I still don't hold it against him because he had a nice game. Anyway,
hey, I make my kids run when they miss their free throws, so hopefully they can do the same thing.
I do think, like in a general strategy standpoint, it's important to touch on something you mentioned, that the projections are just going to be wrong, especially early in the year, especially when injuries come into play or new players come into rotations. And we saw it last night in a great example with Portland, because the weirdest part is on a giant slate where there's tons of things out there, everybody's playing Nasir Little, or at least he was played some. Nobody played him on a 4-game slate.
Nope.
And all that happened was Damian Lillard went out and Carmelo Anthony came in. Do we really think so does that mean we're expecting Carmelo Anthony to have more production for their offense than Damian Lillard? And the positions don't really matter because they have plenty of guards and forwards to go around. But he wasn't – why did we assume his minutes were going to change? That's just foolish, in my opinion, on all of our parts in the DFS industry yesterday. It was a spot that I could have attacked and didn't take more advantage of. I think that was a really, really good example of what we're talking about just assuming that he's going to play 21 minutes because that's what the projections say. Why in the world would he play 21 minutes? Anyway.
Yep. All right. Let's go on to Knicks Philadelphia. And I will just say for this game that the Knicks, for me, just based on what I'm seeing, projection-wise, whatever, is just a cross-off. I just don't see anybody that's decent value here. On the Philadelphia side, I just get very nervous about just throwing Joel Embiid away. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where he always has 80-point upside. You know, the Knicks can't guard anybody, and he's 10,000. So it's one of those psychological barriers where I honestly believe that if he were 9,900, he'd be owned 10% more than if he were 10,000. And it just looks like one of those incredible things where he's 10K. Why would you play him over Cat at like pretty much the same price? I just don't want to completely cross him off my player pool, especially if he's going to be like 2% owned.
Yeah, I'm going to wait for the ownership. I think he's going to actually have a little bit of ownership. I don't think it's going to be significant to where I'm going to care, but like I'll probably be around 10% on him. I don't think I'm going to go much higher than that. And even that, I still could end up even coming off because there are going to be other guys we like. I feel the same way about Tobias Harris. I think he's actually like the sneakier, better play in this game. He kind of goes off against these teams like that don't really play good transition defense, that he can get, he can get off a lot of threes against them. I just sort of like it. Like all the bigs, don't really match up well. You can't really picture him. Julius Randle trying to guard him doesn't really make sense. He's quick off the dribble. I think that they're going to start utilizing him more. That's at least what I've heard. And his price at 6,200 is certainly interesting. Probably not the right slate to get overly excited about it, but I expect him to put up 35 to 40 fantasy points here most of the time, even in a blowout. So I just think he's worth mentioning. And I think RJ Barrett, if you just end up at 5.8K, I don't mind him just because I think there's upside with him. But I don't think like there's anything about this matchup that stands out. His price just keeps standing out to me because below 6K, I watch the games and it's not like it takes that much for him to get in the 40s. I know it's not fun to mess with the Knicks, but those are really the only guys I'm considering.
Yeah, I think we move on to the next game.
Let's do it.
And the next game isn't going to take me that long either. But
wonderful. That's what we love on these slates. We don't want to be playing everybody.
So Orlando, Toronto. I had nobody on Orlando. I mean, obviously you can reel off who the good players are, right? But it's not just about who the good players are. I mean, on this particular slate, I wouldn't get to any of Vooch. I wouldn't get to any of Gordon. And these just guys I'm reeling off. They're just not projecting all that well, especially relative to this slate. And on the Toronto side, we have these same discussions every day about Van Vliet and Siakam. I mean, Siakam both these guys are going to play in just a boatload of minutes. And they both actually show up as pretty decent value. So given the fact that I haven't put anybody else in yet, I guess I may as well put in Siakam and Van Vliet just as decent plays. I don't know if I'm going to end up getting to them. But as far as just pure value goes, I mean, they certainly project pretty well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that here's my answer to this entire game. I don't love this game. I don't really want to mess with it. I think Siakam is just at these minutes that he's playing, if the games are close, it's just such an extreme value to take a chance on. I think it's interesting they're only 3.5-point favorites in this game. And this was the playoff matchup from last year, which actually in my early season, I predicted Orlando to play them in the first round this year too. I do think that Siakam is the guy who I'm looking to play a little bit of, but I think that just with the other guys in this slate, it's hard, except for those minutes, you just don't get him anywhere else but him and Van Vliet. So I don't want to stack. I will play a little bit of Van Vliet, a little bit of Siakam, probably be just ahead of the field on those guys. And the one guy I will take a shot on Orlando, and I keep playing this guy, especially over on FanDuel, even though he's more expensive over there in general. Jonathan Isaac, I just think I know he was out the last one. He's still too cheap. I think there's upside with him. I really believe in him as a player, and I think you're going to see some explosion games out of him where he puts up 10 stocks or things like that. So you just want to keep an eye on a guy like this, and it's not a great matchup for it necessarily, but it's not necessarily a terrible one either. So I think it's an okay play there. Those are guys, 10% guys, but I think we could just move on.
Okay. Cleveland, Miami is the next one I had.
Okay.
And this one's an interesting one to me because when I woke up, whatever, I looked at news and I saw that Tristan Thompson was out and Larry Nance actually might be questionable. I'm not sure if he's playing or not. As of now, I actually am presuming him in.
Yeah, I think he's going to play.
The first thing I noticed was, okay, so Thompson is out. Either Love or Zizic is going to have has to get huge bumps. But then it was funny when they actually came out with projections, and I'm looking at it, it doesn't look like it's that big a deal. Like Kevin Love, I was expecting to pop a little bit more, but he just isn't right now. And so I have to wait and see what else develops. Larry Nance Jr., I still have him in, so if he's out, then obviously that changes things a little bit. And the other guy that I guess you have to kind of look at, especially on a slate with no value, with no cheap value, is whether you play Ante Zizic. Now, what I heard was that he's kind of a coach speak kind of guy that you have to really see what the coach says about the possibility he plays minutes. But aside from that, I wasn't going to go to anybody else on the Cleveland side at all. I was just going to kind of watch and see what the status of the bigs were. On the Miami side, this is one of the games where you have a standout play as far as value goes in Jimmy Butler, who carries along some amount of blowout risk. Now, what that is, I don't know. But again, you got to kind of look at what we're projecting him for. So the projections I'm looking at haven't projected for 36 minutes. So if they're projecting that he's such a great value at 36 minutes, I'd like to think that there's more downside from those 36 than upside from the 36. But, that's something you have to consider, and you have to factor in ownership as well. But so on the Miami side of it, Butler at 7,700 is projecting, 45 points or something like that. So he's going to project at a great value. So he certainly someone that I want to keep as my quote unquote core, call it the best play available to me so far.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I do think Zizic is I like Zizic tonight. I played him last time too. Here's the thing: Tristan Thompson being out to me doesn't help Kevin Love. In fact, it hurts this whole team except for Zizic, for the most part. Except for Zizic and Nance. Zizic and Nance's minutes are going to be pretty secure. I think you're going to see them basically split a lot of 5 minutes with a little bit of Kevin Love in there, but mostly it's going to be those guys, I think, and with Love on the other side. I like Love at this price anyway, so I'll just play him. I don't care. The issue I have is I'm worried about this game environment on this slate. You kind of have to. So I will probably reserve my Kevin Love lineups for Jimmy Butler, running backs, potentially playing Nance as well. And I do think Nance on his own is a very, very strong play at 4,300, assuming that he plays. I also don't mind Tyler Hero at 4,400. I think that he's definitely in line to play 28 plus minutes, and I think that he's going to end up with 25 to 40 here. And I'm saying 40 is obviously a stretch, but against this Cleveland team, it is a boost for all of these guys on Miami. And guys like Hero, I feel like even in blowouts are going to play 28 minutes. You may not get that extra boost from him, and Darius Garland at 4.1 on the other side. I'm not going to probably play much of him, but I don't mind getting little bits of exposure here if I'm asked multi-entries. But the guys you're focusing on are the Love Butler. I don't know how much Butler I want where I don't have a piece from Cleveland because I like Zizic and Nance and Love enough. But I think that's just what I'll do is I'll save maybe 15 to 20% of my lineups having some sort of combination of those four in there, and then the other ones I'll just play on my own or Zizic and Nance.
Well, I feel that's going to be a theme, with guys like Butler, and as we'll get to Giannis and we'll get to Luka, guys like that. They're just great to score a lot of points. What kind of confidence do you have that the game environment is conducive to that? So I think that's a good theme to kind of keep in mind throughout the course of the slate. The other thing I will mention, just anecdotally, and again, we'd have to look at the sites to figure this out for real. But I do recall that in blowouts, I have seen Zizic been left in the games all the fourth quarters, and against other third units. I mean, I've seen him get 20 points in 6 minutes. In those
right. The only issue with Zizic is we don't even know if his minutes limits is restricted. So So we've got to find out about that, basically. And then
Okay.
as of right now, I'm putting him in as a priority value play. I think he's going to end up being very, very, very good value, most likely.
Okay. Moving ahead to which could be an interesting game, the Charlotte-Brooklyn game. Again, with so many of these other games that have, that have kind of big spreads. I mean, you gotta look for games like this, like Charlotte and Brooklyn. You're gonna have a 220 total, and the minutes are gonna be, I don't want to say secure, but it rates to be at least a close game. The first guy that pops once again is Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, again, he was a stone lock the other day. And unfortunately, again, we only went over it for like 2 seconds when we were doing the review because it was early. We didn't mention that if Irving was out, Spencer Dinwiddie would be a lock, and he just totally was. I mean, he was even in a blowout. I mean, they got murdered, and he still was just in there and just so much usage and assists and rebounds and all of it. And they moved him up to 7,200, but it really doesn't seem to affect his projections and output at all. I mean, he's still rating us just a ridiculous play. So on the Brooklyn side, I mean, I'm really just putting him as a top play. And on the Charlotte side, the three guys that are showing up as good values, and you could probably put your spin on this because you know Charlotte better than I do, are your Terry Rozier, who just seems to make sense, and the other two guys that we talk about a lot, this Devontae Graham and Cody Zeller. So, that was really the three guys in Charlotte I was looking at. On the Brooklyn side, I just still think that Dinwiddie, until further notice, just has to be plugged in.
Yeah, I really think this is another one of those interesting games on this slate. I really like Rozier. I don't love that he's going to be too crazy chalky. What I think is interesting is that there was a time not more than 10 days ago where he was, I think, 6K. He was 5,900, and I believe Devontae Graham was 7,300. And I think Devontae Graham had twice the ownership. And I thought that was insane. Devontae Graham is now 6.7K and is going to have 1/5, 1/6, maybe even less of the ownership. He's still got upside. I'm not in love with it as a play, but I just think it's kind of interesting, worth noting. I do think Rozier is the one who makes the most sense because I think he's fairly safe with the upside for 6K in this matchup. I like it for him. I think that Jared Allen on the other side is my favorite play at 5,300. He's been getting more of the run. He's closing. He's starting, obviously. He's getting run alongside. They can at times play them together. They're not going to do that tonight probably, but I do think that maybe they would even. I don't know. Jared Allen, I just think at 5,300 is certainly interesting. And he can create offense. So he's a better all-around player. So with Kyrie gone, I'm sort of looking for him to continue to step up, hopefully for them. I think this game, if it stays close, this is a nice little mini stack, and then you run it with Dinwiddie and Taurean Prince. Taurean Prince is the one who stands out to me the most on the other side, other than Jared Allen. I'm still questioning whether I want to do that with Dinwiddie. In my initial builds, I don't have him in them, but I do have him at 20% in my script. So I'm going to have to try and figure that one out. I think Taurean Prince, people don't remember the days in Atlanta where he can actually go off for 50s and 60s. And now there aren't those other pieces around them. He's going to have to create some offense as well. He'll take more shots. He'll play more minutes. Good pace matchup against Charlotte. So I think Taurean Prince is the other guy who, along with Jared Allen, I'm going to be very, very interested in tonight. I think those guys are around 25 to 30%, which is pretty much where I'm at for a lot of players in my early builds because it's so early in the day. But I really think those guys are sort of interesting, and I like the correlation too if you want to play one on either side or maybe a 1-2.
Yeah, I might end up doing a little of that.
Oh, I've got one more guy for you here. This is the long shot tournament play for you.
Ooh, let's hear it.
You got to play Miles Bridges, guys. It's not necessarily every night. I think it is every night until he's back to over 5K. We've got to look at some of these weird blowouts. I mean, they lose by 30 points and he still puts up 26.
You were dead right on him the other day. I don't even remember this. Last week we did a review and you kept on coming back to Bridges, and I actually did a 1v1 Bridges against whoever they were playing, and I forgot about the other guy because it was blowout zone. I'm like, oh, forget this. And next thing you know, Bridges went from 12 points to 25 points. But what the hell happened? I guess they just left him right in during the whole blowout.
Yeah, Bridges has upside in a multitude of ways. He can get you blocks, steals, rebounds, assists, and threes. He does everything. The game logs are tricky because you see the blowout there. The game against the Knicks, I can't remember what happened in that game exactly, but I remember
looks like 0 for 8 in 15 minutes.
Just a terrible, just had one of those weird. I mean, the 15 minutes though we've projected for 31. I think that's about right. I know he had the other game against Detroit. I believe those 2 fouls were in the first quarter, and then you see against Memphis, a strong game. This is a good environment for him. We know Jared Allen's a good help side defender, but not that they're going to match up exactly, but I think just in the 30-plus minute range, while no one's playing him at 4,900, I think he's the long shot tournament play for this game.
Okay, I like it.
All right, so let's move over to
Milwaukee, Atlanta. Is that what we have next?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Milwaukee, Atlanta. I guess they're on back-to-back. Milwaukee is, and coming off a day where I wouldn't want to say he busted, right? But Giannis, I don't want to say disappointed. I mean, he did score whatever he scored, but I think people were way more.
It's not a back-to-back.
Oh, I thought they played last. Didn't Giannis play last night? And
wasn't that the day before? Yeah, it was the 18th they played. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Boy, it just seems as though it was so recent.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Right, but I think that's against Chicago, right? And he quote unquote only scored 55. I was very. He was projected for higher, and that's what happens sometimes. Even when
he missed 3 minutes of a rotation in that game. The game before, he missed 8 minutes of rotation, and he still is putting up 55s. That's where he's at.
So he is showing up as the best overall value given price point, given whatever, you know what I mean, adjusting for him for raw points as well. He's projecting as the best, or at least close, one of the 2 best values on the whole slate. Him and Luka we'll get to in a minute. So on the one hand, you have that. On the other hand, you have, an 11-point spread. Yet on the other hand, you have a situation where it's a 233-point total with a guy on the other side of the game that could keep it close and creates a very, very natural, 1v1 correlation play if you wanted to go that way. So I think it's a very, very interesting decision you make of what to do with Giannis, whether you play him by himself, if you could get away with that, whether you have to play him with Young or Bembry from the other side or whatever, or whether you could fade him completely. I am not playing anybody else in Milwaukee on the side, although I did get lucky with Brook Lopez the other day. I'm not going back to him today. Yeah, I'm not going back to him today. And on the other side, there's actually some news to kind of watch for in this Atlanta game. So I don't know if Jabari Parker is still questionable or whatever it is, but
I think he's going to play, is my guess.
Oh, okay. Because if he were going to be out, then it would be all that usage up for grabs between Bembry and Hunter and all those guys.
I don't only think he plays. I think he plays season high in minutes.
Yeah. So if that's the case, I'm not going to play him. Actually, I was just going to play. If anybody, I was going to play Trae Young, and I think it's an interesting decision that tests our knowledge of what correlations mean and whether we're right or not. Of whether you could either play Trae by himself, whether you could play Trae only with Giannis. If you play Trae and Giannis, that puts some salary pressure on your lineups for sure.
Well, of course, you can do one without the other. We never said that. There's no automatic one way, but it's just a reality. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I think that ideally you'd like to correlate your situation.
Sure.
You don't need to force it on a giant slate where there's a lot of good plays. Certainly not in this particular instance. I'm going to take a quick look at something. While I'm doing that, what you talk about what else you like from the Atlanta side? Anything other than just?
Yeah. So again, the only guys I was interested in at all would be Giannis on the Milwaukee side, and Atlanta. I really only have Trae Young as a possible play, unless there's some injury news that comes out. Everybody else's kind of rates is kind of break evenish stuff. But again, on a day with no value, I mean, maybe you have to try Bembry at 3,800, or DeAndre Hunter at 4,200. It just kind of depends on what else shows up.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just going to take a quick look at something from last season and just see what happened in this situation. Basically, what I want to understand is sorry about that. This is what happens when you do some searches. You end up with silly pop-ups. Anyway, I just think that Jabari is interesting in this game. I know revenge, and I know it's not in Milwaukee, but he is getting minutes now. The pace should be good with him. I do think he has a competitive, I think he feels angry and disappointed, in his whole time there and everything, including against, the Giannis guys. And I actually thought I remembered him having a good game before against the Bucks last year, even when he wasn't playing that many minutes. But I don't know if I was accurate or if it was the year before, maybe. Anyway, either way, I do think Jabari is an interesting tournament play. I really think that overall, though, Giannis is the guy you want. Giannis is going to be in probably as many lineups as any other player for me tonight. And I think that Trey on the other side I like, but I don't think I'm going to end up with more than about 15 or 20% of them. I feel like I also really like DeAndre Hunter. I think that the minutes are starting to get more secure. He's getting more of that power. Even though Jabari was out, I think he's going to play plenty of minutes. I think Hunter and Jabari are both interesting on the other side. I don't think I can go, because with Evan Turner coming back, I don't think I can go to Bembry or any of those other guys. Those minutes should be spread out. So it's basically just those guys. Damian Jones, if you want to take a shot, I don't blame you, because if the no more value opens up, but I think that's, probably reaching.
Yeah, I'm kind of fiddling around with this because, again, if you pick Giannis, I mean, you do have to make some other decisions. But I think that we're onto something with some of these guys that you've already brought up, like DeAndre Hunter or Bembry, either way, and also this Miles Bridges play, which no one's going to have. I think that's kind of an interesting.
I'm also just for the record, I'm going to be lower on Dinwiddie than I think other top pros will be.
Right.
I don't think that Dinwiddie is this lock of scoring 45 fantasy points tonight at all.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find a better guard.
Yeah. Well, we can go to the next one too in the meantime.
Let's do it. So the next game, what is it? Golden State. All right. So here we go. So Golden State against Dallas. All right. On the Dallas side, Luka Doncic, as I mentioned in the last podcast, is just ridiculous. If for no other reason to play DFS than to watch this dude play is just ridiculous. And the passes that he makes is, for a 20-year-old kid, is just beyond. I mean,
I didn't even need to wait any time until I took the victory lap on Luka. I thought this guy was the best. I thought this was one of the most ridiculous draft things in history that anyone was even up against him. I've never felt so confident since Shaq and I was a little kid that somebody was going to be just that much better than everybody else. He's so good.
So Doncic, I mean, he's projecting for a billion points at 10-4. He's playing like a 12K player, and he's projected for, and he's prices a 10-4 player. So I'm not surprised that his value is popping, and he's obviously a very, very strong play. How that translates to ownership and blowout risk and all that stuff, I mean, you certainly have to include him in your player pool. The only other guy from Dallas, again, it's just becoming like this, is Porzingis, who actually had a really good game in the last game. But I just find it so hard to play him when I just know that how much usage Luka is just going to take. Now, with that said, he is showing as a good value. He is 7,300, and he's going to be a hell of a lot lower owned than Doncic. But after those two guys, I don't really have anybody on the Dallas side. I'm not into Kleber and Powell tonight, or Delon Wright tonight. But that's really all I have for Dallas. On Golden State, I was expecting, again, this Alex Burks and Draymond Green to be really, really extreme values. They're just showing up as okay. I mean, Glenn Robinson and Pascal are showing up as pretty similar. I still think, again, just being an idiot, that Draymond Green at 6K without any of those big Golden State guys is just a play every day. But again, that's just, that's me not trusting numbers. That's me just kind of like knowing what I see.
Well, no, I mean, he did it last night.
He did. No, he's awesome. I'm just saying that every day I'm pulling him up and I'm playing him every day. And even though like tonight, he's not projected to be that great a value, I just don't see how. You know what I mean? Like they can get blown out, they can do whatever. But the fact is that he can play point guard. He plays 5-man. He plays 4-man. He's got the most uses. He's got the most talent. He's the best player on the team right now. And part of me thinks he kind of likes it, playing in these environments where he just is just the man. I don't know. I was Alec Burks last night, or was it last night? He was showing up as a great value. I was a little suspicious of it, and he ended up just doing fine. So I have no reason to doubt it again.
He crushed.
These guys tonight are just guys for me. They're not like huge priorities.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think if you play, like, this is a really weird, annoying situation because Luka's too cheap, obviously. Yeah. I think we all know that. I think that I'm going to have to take stands somewhere because I'm going to be well overweight on some other guys. and I think I might be a little bit underweight on Luka. I also don't feel like I'd be that shocked if somehow Golden State announces people out. I think just so realistically, Luka's going to end up in the 30% range here, which is fine. But even just from a lineup construction standpoint, it's hard to play him and Giannis. He's going to be higher owned than Giannis. I would rather play Giannis in a game that I think, at least it's a road game where a better game environment than this one is. It's hard. I never feel comfortable saying anything about but play Luka. But as of right now, I definitely like Luka. I just think that I'm going to have to be lower somewhere else. I also think that there's an incredibly good pivot and one of my favorite plays on the slate in this game that no one's going to play, and that's DeLon Wright. I think we have to keep an eye on Seth Curry. Now, this is somewhat contingent on this. If Seth Curry, who I think is going to possibly miss the game tonight, I think you get DeLon Wright at 4K. If his minutes get up to 30, and if there's any kind of a blowout, oh my God, I think DeLon Wright goes for 35, 40. Like, we've seen him in those types of spots. He can go nuts, and he'll be on the court anyway with these guys. So I personally think he's like a play that I thought would be sneaky. I'm a little surprised that we've got him at the ownerships. I think it's because there's lack of value so far in the slate. But I really like DeLon Wright. I think that you could play this game also in a mini stack. If you do want to play Doncic, you could even play Doncic, Porzingis, and then run it back because the guys are so cheap on the other side with Draymond, with Burks, who I'm going to be under the field on Burks also as well tonight. Again, I'm just going to sort of take the shot on Murray probably at the same price, and that's what I'm looking at basically. But I will have a little bit of them, just not that much. Overall, probably have less of this game than the field does. I just don't want to get crazy with the exception. I do think DeLon Wright is a really interesting play, and I want to keep an eye on that Seth Curry news because I know we have an ownership projection on him now. I just feel like he gets overlooked.
I even missed that. I didn't even know that Seth Curry was questionable. And it's funny, when I manually changed the minutes to on DeLon Wright, giving him 30, I mean, he becomes, well, you know what he becomes? He becomes 40% owned, but
he does he though? I don't know that he does.
Okay. Well, it depends how much publicity he gets. So there's this whole thing where Seth Curry is out, DeLon Wright is starting. We expect him to play 32 minutes. That's one thing. If they just announce Seth Curry out, that could be, you know what I mean? Maybe it gets ignored.
Absolutely. People will definitely react to the other. And the truth is that if he's not starting, the better the news for us because we don't want him on the court at the same time as Luka as much as possible.
Yeah. All right.
Let's move over.
Where are we? Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago? Is that where we are?
No, Utah, Minnesota.
Utah, Minnesota. Okay, so Utah, Minnesota, this is the second of a home and home, I believe, between these two guys. I think they just played the other day. This exact same, I think it was their last game they played against each other. Let me just make sure of that.
Yeah, they did. It was recently. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the last game.
I think it was too.
Yeah. In any case, on the Minnesota side, if you don't want to play, if you don't want to play Giannis, if you don't want to play Luka, if you want to try to get 9,500 guys in, I mean, I certainly am not going to argue with you for taking Karl Anthony Towns. It's a 3-point spread, so his chance that he's in the game at the end are higher than some of these other guys. And he scored 60 against these guys last time. And I think Utah still, after all these years, carries on that reputation of being a great defensive team, and Rudy Gobert takes on the reputation, whether it's accurate or not, as being a really great defensive player. So I think that keeps Cat's ownership down a little bit. So I certainly am not going to be eliminating him from my player pool. I want to get your opinion on whether Teague is still viable at this price. I didn't see him as a good value at 6,300. But aside from that, no one on Minnesota. And on Utah, I mean, the guy who's showing up for me as a good value is Donovan Mitchell. And he's showing up as a really good value. He's showing up as just about the same almost as Jimmy Butler. And I guess the two are both going to be pretty decently owned. But I feel that these guys are very similar as far as, what to expect from them.
Yeah, I have an interesting take on that. I think Donovan Mitchell is the guy. If you're going to play if I'm playing whatever I'm playing Towns in, Donovan Mitchell probably will be on the other side of it. I actually might have Gobert on the other side of a couple of those as well. I don't really think that so Towns played this. We played this matchup. There was no Wiggins. I think Wiggins might play tonight, so we'll find out about Wiggins. Obviously, that's a big thing to note. But if Wiggins plays, that's a boost down. Towns has hit 7 threes in the last game, so he basically didn't do anything in the post, which is exactly why I kind of liked him the other day against Gobert. But I don't
Right.
think that we can count on that, especially with Wiggins being back, that he's going to spend his whole time on the perimeter. So I just think it's like, okay, I'm going to play some of them, but I'm not that interested in him. Where I do, I'm definitely going to want to get exposure because I want to attack Minnesota. You know that. I want to play, one of those other guys. And then, of course, if Wiggins is out, you can go ahead and feel much more comfortable at playing more Towns. Just be aware that other people are going to as well. So at high ownership versus Gobert, I probably am not interested in Towns. At low ownership versus Gobert with no Wiggins, then I'd be more interested. Overall, probably going to be a little below the field on Towns, but certainly don't mind him in a stack with Mitchell on the other side.
Okay, pretty straightforward, actually.
Yeah.
What's next? The Denver-Houston or
No.
Detroit, Chicago?
So now we're at my favorite game of the day.
Oh man.
I have no problem with like everybody in this game.
All right. Well, again, I'll just give my idiot view first. I was looking at in Detroit. The only guy I really liked was Andre Drummond. Blake Griffin is showing just okay. Derrick Rose and Luke Kennard would be the next best guys, but those are just not projecting too well as far as the places I look at. So on the Detroit side, I would just, if I was going to play it, I would just play AD, and he certainly rates as a good play. So I would certainly put him in my player pool. And on the other side, in the Chicago side, the usual dudes. I mean, Market and Levine Carter, pick one, but they're not exactly. Wow, Lauri Market is now 5,400.
See, everyone has that reaction, and no one's going to do the same thing with Carter.
Well, I'm getting there.
Martin's going to get a ton of ownership tonight.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, when I made this little sheet, Markkanen was actually one of the guys in this 15 to 20% range who's going to be taking some ownership as far as the early looks go. And Carter Jr., I mean, he's just, again, the two of these guys, Markkanen and London Carter Jr., are really down. But again, maybe projections just are catching up. They're showing them as decent value, but not through the roof value.
So here's the problem with the projections for these guys, because they're actually probably accurate, but the reason why the Wendell Carter one is really tricky is the foul trouble. This guy has nearly fouled out or been in foul trouble of every game that he's played recently, every single one.
Mm-hmm.
And when he doesn't, he's going to put up 40 fantasy points in this matchup, I think. The problem is Drummond on the other side, maybe some Blake Griffin, doesn't exactly scream of not being in foul trouble. So I prefer Markkanen from that standpoint. What I don't prefer him on is that he'll be 4 times, maybe higher, the ownership of Wendell Carter. So I don't think you have to worry about it that much on this slate. I just think Carter shouldn't be off the board at 5,500. I'm not even Xing him out on FanDuel. I'm going to play him a little bit over there at 66. I think Wendell Carter has a ton of upside. We haven't seen as much of it this year. I think what's killed Levine's upside and what's made his price drop actually is we say it's killed his upside. 2 of his last 42 2 games ago and 46 before that. For some reason, they're just keeping his price down, and no one plays him. Kobe White has taken over 2 of the last 3 games. Now, oddly enough, Levine scored 46 in one of those games. If Kobe White doesn't hit a million threes and take over again, I think Levine is going to have a terrific game. They played this matchup once. He only put up 35. I just feel very safe with him with upside, and I really like the matchup for everybody. And mostly, I love the Detroit side of this. I love Drummond. I'm going to probably Drummond, Giannis, and then the other guy who's coming up in the next game is going to be my 3 highest owned players tonight. I don't care at all that Blake is back for this. This team Andre Drummond is going to rebound whether Blake's there or not. That's what we're playing him for anyway. We're not playing him for any other reason. The last time in this matchup, he put up 67. Obviously, Blake wasn't there. He's 8,700. He's going to have ownership, but it's not going to be crazy. And he is a monster play. He's going to put up another huge game. I would expect. I think 2020 is really reasonable in this spot for him. And I really, really, really like the only thing that makes me hesitant on Drummond is there's some other centers that I like also, but I think that Blake Griffin is a great play at 7,100. I know it's weird and maybe you don't want to play them together, but the pricing you definitely can. And assuming Blake takes over most of the offense, Drummond clears all the boards. I mean, they're going to run a lot through him. But the only other problem is that Derrick Rose could go nuts here out of nowhere. So I'll have some exposure. I'm not going to say to play Rose. It just might take away a little bit of Blake's upside, which is why I don't have him as high as I do Drummond. Anyway, that's sort of where I'm at on that side, but I really love running it back with 2 of Levine Carter, Levine Markkanen, potentially Kobe White Carter, Kobe White Markkanen, one of those combinations. And I don't even mind the Markkanen Carter exactly together because they're so cheap. The Carter thing, it comes with foul risk, but at the same time, you're getting an incredible discount. And if you say Wendell Carter is going to play 30 minutes tonight, I think that Wendell Carter is going to put up 40 fantasy points. So from that perspective, I have to play a lot of Wendell Carter.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth with the Levine thing, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Does it seem to you that Kobe White is kind of just eating into Levine's kind of ball hog minutes? So it's
yeah.
That was
Levine,
great.
I mean, they both are gunners. Like Levine is just like an extreme version of Kobe White. Like I like Kobe White too. Levine is still going to get his time. It was a weird. They were coming back in the game, and Kobe White went nuts in the last one. Like Levine's going to put up 40 more often here than he puts up. I think he puts up 40 more often than not, and I think he puts up 50 here a good percentage of the time.
Okay. What's next? Houston, Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So Houston, Denver. Again, another close game. So before you go ahead and dismiss, James Harden at 11.8. I know that there are other good, better, quote unquote, better values, but he's 11.8. He's not going to be that highly owned. You have a pick'em spread, so his minutes are a little, and God forbid they go to overtime. I do not want to throw him out of my player pool completely. Let's put it that way. Good call, by the way, the other day on Westbrook. I'm a little mad at you because given the tone that you had during the video we made,
I said that Westbrook was my highest owned player.
No, but I thought I'm really good at reading you, and forget that you're highest owned. Just usually when the guys that you like just go off, you just always just win all the money. I don't know how you do it. So when he was going crazy, I'm like, all right, I'm looking at the leaderboard, and BobbyFi is gonna be on the top of all. And you're just one or two players away.
Yeah, but, it didn't happen for me that night. Although Westbrook, I did feel good about that call.
Oh, and he was awesome. So no one else on Houston. I wasn't going to go to Westbrook today. I was only going to play probably some Harden, although I can't imagine why I wouldn't play Westbrook, but I just wasn't going to, just the way they project. And on the other side, the Denver side, I just had Jokic as the only guy, yet another $8,400 guy who projects pretty well. So again, I don't know whether you have to make big stands or big calls on these guys. You just kind of play a decent amount of them. I don't know what to do, but he certainly looks good to me.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to pick between Jokic and Westbrook, I'd pick Westbrook, and it's not even close. But I like both of them. I think Westbrook.
What about between Jokic and Drummond? I
think Drummond is the better play.
Okay. And that tone, that was pretty confident. It's only $300 difference. So maybe that's a decent stand then.
I mean, we can look this whole season. Jokic would have put up 2 games that I'd be happy with tonight.
Right.
That's crazy, and he's going to be owned. I don't care. So maybe he does it. I'm not going to go for it. I mean, it's not going to be high on my list. Let's put it that way. I'll play him a little bit, but he's not going to get a crazy amount of ownership. I'll be higher on the other guys in this game. Yeah, if I play Harden, maybe I'll play him or something. But even with Westbrook, I don't need to because the best plays in this game are Russell Westbrook and Gary Harris.
Gary Harris.
Gary Harris at 4,500.
Oh, there's another 4,500 guy. Okay.
Yeah, we've also the minutes are more there. You're gonna have it's a really good matchup for him. I know that they've had a blowout win, so he's just a consistently in the 25 range guy. I know that doesn't feel that exciting at 4,500. This is an upside matchup. We also don't have the other guy in the backcourt anymore. We no longer have help me out here, Beasley, which would have eaten into his upside minutes. Assuming this game stays close, I could see Gary Harris playing as many as 35 or 36 minutes, even though they've been rotating more often. I think at 4,500 in a matchup against a team that plays, for the most part, fast. Here's my thinking a little bit with Houston. Harden can score in both formats, and he's absolutely a god offensively. I've never seen anything like this, except for Jordan. But I also think that when they play fast with Westbrook, like it's usually Westbrook going crazy in those games. So when they've had their slowdown games, this is the games where Westbrook got in foul trouble and whatnot. I also think he's gambling more, so he's a little bit more of a risky play because he'll take more shots and getting into foul trouble because he knows he doesn't need to carry the whole load anymore. But I just think at these prices, like Harris Westbrook makes for a nice little 2-man combo from this game. I really, really like it. It's going to be in a huge portion of my lineups tonight, unless we hear about other exceptional value. I think the guy who gets overlooked here is Clint Capella, who's had, is it 5 games in a row now? How many games in a row is that he's had 20 rebounds? It's been a lot. 20 and 4 games in a row. and 16 the game before that. Capella at 7,900 even, nobody's going to play him. You know, this is not like a bad matchup. It's a weird one, but it's not necessarily bad for him. I don't know. I think maybe you could even play a Capella, like maybe you play a Harden, Capella, Jokic kind of a lineup, or a Westbrook, Jokic, Capella kind of a lineup. I do think that with the way they're playing now, Capella is more of an 8K plus guy because they're using him completely differently than how they have in the past. Well, not necessarily using him. They have two guys who can get him shots like Harden could before. So now you've got Westbrook, and that's what these guys are incredible at. Westbrook made Steven Adams, hundreds of millions of dollars because he could create for him. Capella, you don't need to create as hard, and you're going to have the guy just dunking everything. So they're going to get a lot of assists to this guy. They're also going to let him clear a lot of boards because they want to be off on the run. So I just really like Capella. I think he plays better. I think maybe it's a better match with Harden because you're playing Westbrook partly for the rebound upside, but I really don't mind it any which way.
Well, Anthony Drummond is looking like a really good play at center.
Yeah,
I'm looking at Capella at 7,900, and then I get 800 more and get Drummond.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird to try and think about it like that, but like the weird part is Capella's. I mean, if you look at what he's been doing, he's
been killing it. He's been killing it.
The matchups were better, obviously, but like I don't think this is necessarily a terrible matchup for him. Like he is a guy who can't keep up with him. They're going to try and run as much as they can.
Jokic can't play defense. I have no worry about that. I mean,
no. I mean, like in the half court, he's a big body, but like he also can't get back in transition, which is going to lead to that's at least a few layups in transition alone.
You like Jamal Murray coming off a 60-point game finally? I played him 30 times and he never gets more than 5x, and I forget he's even playing.
No way I'm playing Jamal Murray at 7,500 on this slate. I actually think that he's got upside always, but like I just think this slate, I'm not going to go there.
That annoys me. All right, what do we got? Just the one left?
Just one game, and I only think there's really one guy worth talking about in it.
Well, let's see if we're the same guy. First of all,
we're not.
I always have to ask is if Kawhi's playing, just because. Like I say, he's a part-time player, so I have to always see if he's punching the clock today or not. I have him listed as in, but again, I
think that we're guessing that he plays, but we really don't know, and I don't think it's going to make this incredibly huge difference either way, to be honest.
I have assuming he's in, I'm having exposure to nobody on the Clippers. On the Celtics side, I actually had exposure to nobody. So I'll be curious to see who you would like from either side of this, with assuming Leonard in.
I just think that at this price point, if we don't get more value, Patrick Beverley at 4,200 playing 30-plus minutes in what should be a competitive game is probably worth taking a shot on. Not really in love with anything else. If Kawhi is out, I think Paul George becomes a good play and Lou Williams. But I think the ownership will follow, and I don't know how much people are going to just play the late games though, so maybe it won't. Gonna have to check back in on that one later, but I'm guessing Kawhi is going to play tonight, but I'm not sure. Everything to me looks like he might, but with him, it's really hard to know.
Right.
But so we'll have to wait to find out about that. If he's out, also, I don't think I'm going to go for Harrell, but I get it. Maybe if he's out again, one guy who you could consider on other Michael Green, but like only if he's out. Like I just don't think I'm going to go to anybody else in this game except for Beverly, and I don't really care whether Kawhi plays or not to play Beverly. I'm more just playing the minutes at the price point.
Who do you think is a better upside play, Gary Harris or Tyler Herro?
Herro for upside, probably. I think Harris is probably safer to be in the normal upside range.
Okay.
I prefer Harris to Herro, partly because I prefer game environment, but that actually should favor. Yeah, it's a good either or, but I think Harris I prefer.
I'm just trying to, before we let everybody go, I just want to see if there's anybody else that I can replace some of these guys. So who do you like better, at Alec Burks at 25%, or YOLO Derrick Rose as part of a Detroit-Chicago game today?
I mean, I would say YOLO Derrick Rose, but I'd probably look back and just go another way. And I mean, if you already got the Chicago-Detroit stack, you can play Alec Burks probably in that lineup, although I don't love Burks tonight on the back-to-back. Although, I mean, look, Burks can go out there and do whatever. Like, I mean, if Draymond ends up out for some reason, like Burks, you're going to have to move up your player pool.
It seems kind of odd to have a lineup with Markkanen and Carter. Not so much that the two of them are bad together, but because you have neither Levine nor Kobe White?
Yeah, I would probably rebuild it and then go for value. I'd probably take out Rose, throw in Levine, take out Carter.
Do something else.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, again, there's definitely I like this slate because I think that there are ways you can go without like killing yourself. In other words, like oh my God, if I don't play Giannis, is it going to murder me? No. I mean, you could fade Giannis and go a totally different route and not, be that worried. Obviously, you always have to be worried, but it's not like there's one of those slates where, Westbrook is out and Harden is, projected at 7x at 70% ownership and you have to figure out what to do. Like there's certainly different builds that you can make given the different ways you can go. But again, I think that the blowout risk here may tip the scales for me on some of these plays. I don't know if I think I'm kind of with you, Bobby, that if I had to, and nobody says I have to, but I had to have more exposure between Giannis and Luka. And that's not the only decision in the slate, but I think I agree with you that Giannis to me would be the play. I see a variation where Luka plays 27 minutes in this game, and I would kind of like to not have him if that was the case.
Sure.
More to the point, I'd rather have who you'd like to have. You'd like to have DeLon Wright, like you were saying.
Yeah, that's my. I think he's interesting. Well, obviously there'll be other value, but I think we gave you a pretty good overall thoughts on the slate. Like I think that's sort of where we're at on my DraftKings builds. Like I really am going to be high on the guys who I talked about, Westbrook.
Go over really quickly again what you think your exposures look like. Yeah,
so basically Westbrook, Giannis, Drummond as of right now I have my highest owned players. Shortly beneath them, I have Zizic, Butler, Gary Harris, Markkanen, Carter, Levine, Larry Nance, Taurean Prince. These are just the mix of guys who I'm looking at the moment. And then I also have Blake Griffin.
He's going to be I don't know why people think he's going to be high owned. I don't know if anybody's going to play him.
Who?
Blake Griffin.
I don't think people are going to play him. That's why I want to play him. Right. I mean, he's going to put up 40 fantasy points, right? Like, I just don't get this. Like, he should be owned anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely be interesting.
Yeah. He played 29 minutes in his last game. I think he plays over 30 in this game. I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Anyway, hey, man, great doing the show with you. Thanks so much. And we're going to get this out for the people. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No, all good. Big slate. Big slate. I'm going to make a prediction here. My prediction is that the high score on today's slate is going to be lower than people think.
My prediction is that I'm going to win a tournament tonight, and hopefully you will as well. All right, guys.
I'll take second.
All right, man. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later.